Almost everyone has heard the environmentalists preaching. We need to stop unnecessarily using so many resources. We need to recycle more. All of the waste is leaking into the ocean. The baby animals are eating plastic. We're killing the planet. The non-vegan, environmental, sustainable, green living people are ruining life for everybody else. And when you phrase it like that, it sounds silly, but a lot of what those people are saying is true. We are using too many resources, carelessly throwing away items that could be reused or recycled. Take plastic, for example. In 2009, the Environmental Protection Agency found that there was approximately 30 million tons of plastic waste produced in the U.S. alone. A fully loaded semi-truck weighs 40 tons. So in 2009, the U.S. produced 750,000 semi-trucks worth of plastic waste. And of those 750,000 semi-trucks, only 52,000 were recovered for recycling. The rest of the plastic ended up in landfills, in the water, and in the streets. Plastic items are often made to be used only once, like plastic bags, and they don't degrade, so the waste is going to be here longer than the people who created it. The eco-friendly people are starting to wise up to the fact that something must be done. They want to keep the animals from eating the plastic bags and dying, and they want to keep the chemical waste out of the environment, so that people don't drink toxic water or get sick. One of the biggest problems they face is getting other people to join the cause, because a lot of people feel that the problem is too big, that there's just too many things to reduce, reuse, and recycle. And they look at the problem as one gigantic monster that's too big to vanquish. So instead of trying to become a vegan and getting rid of television and stop using emission-producing cars, why not start small? Why not, instead of looking at the task as a conglomeration of hundreds of thousands of things that need to be done, why not look at something small? Something like a medicine bottle. Most people are familiar with medicine bottles, whether they take prescriptions all year round or just take over-the-counter pain pills. Those with chronic illnesses might be a little more familiar with this problem, but those who only take medications every now and again might not even be aware that there is a problem. For the disbelievers on either side, this may surprise you. In 2003, the Northeast Recycling Council Incorporated estimated that 640 million pounds of plastic were used in pharmaceutical packaging, which includes both the pill bottles and the plastics used in shipping the pill bottles. That's 8,000 semi-trucks worth of plastic. And considering the increasing reliance on medication as new diseases are diagnosed in the increasing population, that number has probably gone up considerably since then. And only about 20% of that 640 million pounds was recycled. We can do better than that. The most common types of plastic used in medicine bottles and other types of pharmaceutical packaging is number 2 and number 5, making up more than 50% of plastic waste. And number 2 is one of the most commonly recycled types of plastic in the U.S. So there are plenty of opportunities to recycle, and recycling is a good thing since it keeps old plastic out of our water, and it keeps new plastics, which will eventually become the old plastics, from being created. Unfortunately, there are certain obstacles to recycling pill bottles, which means that recycling isn't the best solution to this problem. Sometimes the bottles aren't even marked, so in certain cases there's no way to tell what type of plastic the bottles are made out of, meaning that you can't recycle them. Number 2 plastic is taken at most recycling programs, however, number 5 plastic is not, which further limits recycling opportunities. And another problem with the recycling is that most recycling programs won't even take pill bottles in the first place. This is because they have a tendency to roll off of the conveyor belts and get caught in the machinery. And as if that wasn't bad enough, a lot of recycling programs don't even come to pick up recyclables, which means that consumers need to buy emission-producing gas to transport the medicine bottles, and they also have to take time out of their day to do that. And also, recycled bottles that are not cleaned properly can contaminate the other plastics that are made out of the pill bottles. Recycling is still a better option than simply throwing the bottles out, though, so I strongly encourage you to check with your recycling programs if this is what you want to do to help with the problem. But this is still not the best choice. Most people might be more inclined to reuse the medicine bottles when dealing with this issue. This is an even better alternative to recycling because it takes fewer resources to reuse a pill bottle than it takes to recycle them, and it can save money for the consumer as well. And there are dozens of ways to reuse them, which gives you plenty of options. One way to reuse pill bottles is to, once you clean them and remove the labels, fill them with small rocks or beans and voila, you have a homemade cat toy. For those of you without feline companions, medicine bottles can also be filled with water and frozen. This way you don't have to go out and buy an ice pack to keep your lunch cold or buy a steak for your injuries. Speaking of injuries, pill bottles are also the perfect size to be a miniature first aid kit. Very convenient. for those of you who aren't accident-prone, pill bottles can often make good craft containers for beads, pom-poms, or googly eyes. Most pill bottles are also the perfect size to hold a miniature sewing kit for on-the-go repairs. For any beachgoers, the bottles are also the perfect container to hold money in. You might not want to use one this size, but they're also good for holding quarters for the laundromat. They can store pretty much anything from hair accessories to office supplies. You can even use these pill bottles as seed starters before you put your plants in your garden. And I don't strongly suggest this, but you can turn them into salt and pepper shakers by poking holes in the top. I'm sure that there are thousands of other ways to use pill bottles that I didn't mention, and all it takes to come up with them is a little creativity and imagination. But not only are they good for everything I just told you about, but they're also very good for storing pills. I know this sounds really obvious, but it's true. The best thing to store in a pill bottle is pills. This is why certain pharmacies will allow you to refill your prescriptions using the same medicine bottle. Not all places do this, but I strongly encourage you to check with your pharmacy to help reduce plastic waste. And if you don't really need a refill or have another use for the pill bottles, then give them to somebody else who does. A lot of veterinary and free clinics would love to have your used, cleaned, label-less pill bottles. Otherwise, they just have to go out and buy their own, which is an unnecessary expense when there are so many that are being discarded instead of being put to use. And until recently, the American Foundation for Children with AIDS was collecting pill bottles to distribute medication to disadvantaged children in third world countries. Even though they're not collecting right now, they or another charitable organization may solicit for empty pill bottles again, and if you have enough patience to save up your pill bottles until that happens, I'm sure that the recipients would appreciate the medication bottles as much as they would appreciate a monetary donation. There are plenty of ways that pill bottles can be reused, and this comes in handy considering how many are produced and distributed every year. But some people may not have an organization that they can give the pill bottles to, and they may not have a use for them at home. So even though reusing is still a better option than recycling, it's not the solution. So then what is? Reducing. There's a reason that the order is reduce, reuse, recycle. I am not saying that if you depend on medication to live that you should stop taking medication. What I'm saying is that if you have a small headache, try to tough it out instead of going to the store and buying a bottle of Motrin or Tylenol or whatever it is you take. If you're having trouble sleeping, try doing a relaxation technique like meditation or yoga. Instead of putting chemicals into your body and plastic into the environment, try to cut back on the pill consumption. The bottles, if the pills are not used on a regular basis, have a tendency to be forgotten or misplaced, which means that you have to go out and buy another one, meaning more waste in the environment and less cash in your pocket. If we can reduce our use of medication, then we wouldn't need to find so many ways to reuse pill bottles, and they wouldn't eventually have to be recycled or end up polluting our environment, harming the wildlife, and taking with them the residue of whatever medication was inside previously. Not thrown into the garbage is a small thing. And when we all start small, big things can happen. Thank you for watching.